everyone. Pull up a chair and get comfy.
Oh, girl, have we got stories to tell you all. The Never Alone podcast is about to begin, and you don't want to miss a minute.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Iris Fisher-Smith with our Never Alone podcast, and I've got my co-host with me, Karen Herth Whitty, and I'm excited to have her back. And tonight we have a special guest. Rachel Durham is back with us to talk about what we've been talking about in the last two segments, which is who am I? And how many of us go through life in the different seasons trying to figure out who we are, what we like, what we're supposed to be doing, what is my role? And so that's kind of what we're going to be talking about this evening. And so to kick it off, I want Rachel to remind us of, our viewers, how we know each other and how we met, and just give us a little brief synopsis. Is that the right word? I'm getting old. Give them a brief rundown of how we met and how we know each other.
Yeah. So we met, I think, about 12 years ago, something like that. My kids were much smaller, and you had a different dog at the time.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, we went to the same church, but at two different campuses. And I was in a season of life where I was looking for a mentor, and we met at a combined campus Christmas party. And my kids wanted to meet your dog. And so that's how we ended up talking to each other at this party. And I knew right away, I'd been praying for somebody to come into my life, and I don't know why, we just connected right away. And so I asked you if you would be willing to spend time with me on a regular basis, and you said yes.
Yeah, it was fun to be a mentor. Yeah. I remember growing up, and I was mentored a lot by a lot of different women in my life, and each one had a special place, and I never forgot them, and I never forgot some of the things they said. I had one special mentor in my adulthood when I was going through a very, very rough time physically. And I met her at a church, and I was going through such a tough time with my health. And I was only 21 at the time, and I just didn't understand. What do you understand when you're 21? And so I had this person, I remember her name was Sylvia. She came to me and she said, Iris, I want to tell you something. And it made all the difference to me. She said, for you to go through all of this stuff, God must have a mighty plan for you to allow you to go through all this so you can learn. Because when we go through really hard things, we learn, we grow, if we allow ourselves to do that. And so I was recalling that as you were talking, and that's how we met. So it was a blessing to have mentors, but it's also a blessing as we get older to be now that mentor for somebody else. And it's just as much of a blessing to watch somebody like yourself, Rachel, grow through your experiences. We had a lot of nice conversations, I remember. And every time you would light up and you would feel encouraged, it really melted my heart, to know that you were feeling better. And I watched you grow over the last 12 years. You've done well. So, Rachel, tell us a little bit about what it was like when you were growing up and, trying to find out who you were and what was life like back then? What were your relationships like? What were your friends like? What was your mom like?
Well, I grew up in a single parent home for the most part, like from about 4 or 5 years old until my mom remarried when I was 10 or 11. So I was a latchkey kid. So a lot of my most important, of course my mom was my most important relationship, but like most important relationships outside of that were with friends, kids in the neighborhood. And I have this thing for elderly neighbors. It's actually kind of a theme in my life when I think about it. So yeah, there was special people in my life that kind of came alongside when it can be kind of lonely when you're a latchkey kid, even though I had two older brothers, but they were brothers. I didn't have a sister. I love my brothers, but I did learn how to play football and machine guns and army and cars quite well. But, of course, as a girl, I wanted to also be able to play dolls and things like that.
I can relate to that. We were called tomboys back then, and Karen was like my.
Yes.
I had an older sister, but we were so far apart in age that we didn't really connect. She was off on a different, level. She was in her late teens and I was still very young. And so Karen ended up being like a sister to me. She was like a little sister. It was really lots of fun. And
That she could boss around, drag around. Yeah.
it was fun.
Make do stuff. It was
It was
fun.
lots
I was like you. I was a little compliant there, Rachel. I was a little compliant. I'm like, okay, let's go.
Yep.
Let's do whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a thought. I don't know if you can roll. Can we roll with this a little bit? I had this
Good.
thought about each of you, each of us had such different childhoods, but I'm curious, like, so in those elementary years, who was that person that was pivotal in you becoming to know how to be a friend? Like, so for me, when I was in elementary school, I had this friend, Tracy Coffee, and I loved her so much.
I
But
remember her.
so I have these episodes of friends coming into my life, but then they leave. So this is another interesting piece of the story. So Rachel, we've spoken before, so I know you talked about some other friends that you had too, and I know you are still have that friendship going. And even like Iris, I know all about that. But so name a person who profoundly affected you in your elementary years. Mine would have been Tracy Coffee.
Mine would be my best friend, Jen, who is still my best friend. And I think everybody else in the world calls her Jennifer.
So fun.
She'll always be Jen to me. So yeah, we met, I think, fourth grade, like going into the fifth grade at the bus stop. I was waiting for the bus and she was at the school. Even though we went to different schools, I used her school as a bus stop to catch the bus to mine. And
You
we were
pulled
both
together,
latchkey
Rachel,
kids,
right?
both. Yeah.
I
And
know,
then
it's
what's
kind of funny how you
like,
did that. Yeah.
yeah, well, it's funny because then actually our fifth grade year, she transferred to my school. So then we were in school together. And then her mom got remarried in, I think, like the seventh or eighth grade. And then she transferred to a different school. But we stayed friends. We're still friends. So
That's nice. Yeah.
yeah, but she was very pivotal in my life. And sometimes you don't realize it until later in life because you have perspective maybe as you get older.
Yeah.
But I had to write a paper and we had to write a tribute to somebody special for one of my classes in my undergrad a few years ago. And I wrote my paper about her and how she just always had a very naturally maternal instinct. And I was the tomboy, right? I was the one out playing football. And
That
and
in
so she
common,
just kind of
Rachel.
took me under her wing.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and health issues. I don't know. But like I'm playing football with my rheumatoid arthritis, not always the best combination.
No.
But anyway, so yeah, Jen, she was a whole year older than me, So she took me under her wing and I used to go to her house after school and her single mom household was just as poor as my single mom household. But she would make a feast out of top ramen and she would make
Hmm.
a treat out of peanut butter and powdered sugar. We would,
Fun.
Karen
watch
and I did the
PBS
peanut butter chocolate
together
thing. Yeah.
and eat. Yeah.
We
So
loved
she
it.
just, I don't know if I loved her because she fed me or,
Oh,
like,
oh,
you know, but she just,
yeah.
and she's the mother now of 5 boys
Oh my
and
gosh.
she's so meant for it. She
Yeah.
just she's, her whole life, like she was meant to be in that role. And I still love her so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a number of different.
And Iris, we had each other, but that's because we were in the neighborhood. So I want to make sure, like I know how profound it was I had you. But isn't it funny? Like you have to go to school and learn how to make
Well,
friends. So
that's what I was
sorry, I
gonna.
didn't mean to interrupt there, but I am curious to see where you go.
I was just gonna say that I had a number of different friends. My friend Debbie, my friend Beverly. They were really pivotal in my
Yeah.
relationships, and they were kind of maternal also at very young age. I think they were practicing being mothers
Mm,
on me. You know, they just were so sweet, and they had a
funny.
lot of
Yeah.
wisdom for two young girls. And yeah, they took me under their wing, especially when my parents were getting divorced, and they were encouraging me. I wrote about that in my book and how what an inspiration the two of them were. The two of them were just wise beyond their years. But I also had your mother, Karen. You know, she was really
Yeah.
a great mentor, and she was there and she was ready to help me whenever I needed help, and that was a huge blessing because when these people come into our lives like that, you cannot put a price on it. And if we can recognize
Oh,
it and understand that they're absolutely gifts from God, so that we're not alone. They're almost like angels, right? People talk about seeing angels and wondering if they really saw an angel. Has anybody ever wondered if people come to us like angels, angels in disguise,
Yeah. Yeah. Angels. Yeah. No doubt.
when you're at your lowest point.
You talked about, yeah, no, I think it's super important because then I know you both talked about older women in your lives that were mentors. And I'm having trouble thinking of somebody, which is terrible because I think I probably admired and looked up to, but I didn't know how to put myself out there until I was older,
Yeah.
to really give of myself. So can you both tell about those people in your life?
Yeah, go ahead, Rachel.
Rachel?
We're calling on you.
Come on, girl, do it, do it. You got good.
Yeah. I was thinking earlier, like as far as the elementary years, I had a neighbor, her name was Mrs. Fox, and she was
Foxy
at least in
lady.
her 80s, you know. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was a song.
So I think we first met her because for school we had to, for May Day, we made little paper
My gosh.
flowers and we
Remember?
were supposed to bring them to a neighbor or somebody. Like we were supposed
Mm-hmm.
to give our May Day flowers to somebody. And so
I
I don't know
remember
why, but
that.
I decided to give them to the lady next door. Yeah. So Mrs. Fox let me into her house and just was, she had the gift of hospitality even in her 80s. And
The
she would let
energy.
me watch Lassie on her TV, which was great because I didn't
Ooh.
have a TV at my house.
Yeah.
And I think she probably gave me lemonade or something. I remember
Yeah.
drinking something. But over the years that I lived next door to her, she showed me how to wash a dog. Like I would help her give her
Oh.
dog Bandit a bath out in the
Was that
front
as you were
driveway, and he was this huge,
was
hairy.
that as you were watching Lassie?
He,
Hmm?
Was that as you were watching Lassie?
after we watched
Yeah.
Lassie, then we gave
About
Bandit a
puppies.
bath. Yeah. And then she also
Is
taught
a
me one
theme.
day she taught me one day how to make a bed. And I don't think that
Oh,
it's because my mom hadn't taught me. It's just that I looked at her bed in her bedroom for some reason. She asked me to grab something off her dresser for her because she was like,
yeah.
using a walker, very, very elderly. And I looked at her bed and it was so pretty. She had all these throw
Yeah.
pillows and that was
Yep.
something I hadn't seen before. And so she taught me like how to make a bed pretty. And then
Oh,
in the summer times when we didn't get free lunch at school, of course, because we were home, I just have the best memories. She had a miniature orchard in her yard, just like a couple trees of each kind of fruit. And I would spend hours, she let me, I had to ask, of course, but I spent hours sitting in her cherry tree, just eating cherries right
oh,
off the tree,
fun.
you
Oh,
know?
wow.
Wow.
And then she had like a pear tree and an apple
That sounds
tree.
cool. I
That
know.
sounds very cool.
Yeah, so she, again, there's a theme here. People that feed me, I love them apparently. So,
Oh yeah.
That's
We like
awesome.
food.
That's
We
great.
like
yeah,
food. We're
but
good.
Yep.
yeah, it's
It's a
important.
good
Food's
gathering.
important. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
something about
Well,
it.
it's a
It's
It's very
very
social
important.
cool.
gathering.
So,
People gather
Yeah.
around, having meals together. It's a social thing. I grew up in an Italian Jewish family, and what did they
yeah.
do? Every Sunday we went to my father's mother's house, and we had, 50
Mm,
relatives
I love
gathering
that.
together with all this food. And even, with my Russian grandmother,
Wow.
same thing. But I think maybe some of that was that generation, although I see people doing it now too. It's just a community thing. We need it, you
Yeah.
know. We need joy, and
Yeah.
food does bring joy, doesn't it? Even if you have celiac disease, right, Rachel?
It does. Yeah.
Yes. Well, nothing brings joy when you have celiac disease like finding another person who has celiac disease that you
Yeah.
can get together and cook with, like Iris.
And learn recipes. I can only
How we
Yes.
met.
imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like, I get so happy when I find someone with the same allergies as me because then we can connect over food.
What a thing to
I
reflect on.
digress, but I want to know, is it still as hard to cook these days with celiac, or do you find it a lot easier, both of you? Because I know Iris came to visit once way back when, and she had to come like with her own cooler of stuff and like all these prepackaged things just to cook one thing. And I just remember going, oh my gosh, this is exhausting. And is it easier for you both to do that
It is, and let
nowadays?
me elaborate on that a little bit. When I was first diagnosed with celiac disease, oh gosh, probably 30 years ago now, it was very, very rare. They hadn't heard of it. And so there was
Yeah.
literally nothing in the restaurants, nothing in the grocery stores. I was living on rice cakes, vegetables, and I had to prepare my food. I
Mm,
literally could not go out to eat. It was terrible. My mother and my
yeah.
husband, I can remember them ordering Chinese food once, and I'm sitting there watching them, and I couldn't believe it. But today, it's almost like I
Mm,
was a trendsetter that, you never heard of celiac. I got celiac, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden, over time, everybody had celiac. And I thought, well, this is working to my advantage because now people are making gluten-free food. So now I can go to a restaurant
mm-hmm.
and they make gluten-free foods, and as long as there isn't a ton of cross-contamination, which most of them are pretty good about it. And
Yep.
also my
Yep.
stomach has healed quite a
Yep.
bit, so I'm not as sensitive as I was when I was newly diagnosed with all the stomach inflammation and everything. So now there's so much more
Yeah.
food. I mean, I don't feel deprived at all, and most people that I get together with socially
Oh, good.
understand it, and I find that there are others, Rachel,
Mm-hmm.
right? There are others. Lots of others.
Yes. A growing number.
Yeah, and
That's crazy. Wow.
and some of it is because people have celiac, but it also has a lot to do, from what I've been told, that the way that the wheat is, processed and sprayed, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not them. In other words, not the
Yep.
person. It is the food itself causing these problems. So
Right.
you end up with a wheat allergy
Yeah.
because of the way it's processed. You know.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
Well, I always admired it. So yeah, I'm just curious because I do think that it's changed. I just remember how hard it was for you, and
Oh, it
I
was
mean,
awful.
literally traveling with your own refrigerator to my house. I'm
Well,
like, oh,
and not
this
only
is
that,
terrible. I can't even cook for you.
mine had gone undiagnosed for so long, I ended up with two other autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
One was Hashimoto's,
Yeah.
and the other one was Sjogren's disease, which both
Mm-hmm.
commonly go along with celiac when it goes undiagnosed. It's a dangerous disease
Oh,
when you
wow.
really have celiac, and it just, it causes so many other issues and deadly stuff, you know. You can die from it if you don't take care of it, and it's a long time, but
Mm.
and they say it tends to run in Irish and Italian families. And I have Italian in one side. And Rachel, you have Irish and Italian too? I think I remember, or what?
Yeah.
So I have my paternal grandmother is 100% Sicilian,
Oh, okay.
and then my
Love it.
paternal grandfather was Irish and Portuguese,
Okay.
and then on my mom's side is mostly like English and Irish. So yeah, I always joke I'm the Italian Irish girl who can't eat
Yeah.
potatoes or tomatoes because I have celiac disease, but I also have all these other food issues, and nightshades are what make my life difficult. So yeah, it's
You're
interesting.
lucky you found each other. I think that's really the thing I'm
Yeah.
hearing. It's just really cool you found each other, you know?
Well, the other thing
Yes.
Yeah.
is, Rachel, do you know
And
anybody else in your
yeah.
family that had it? Because my grandmother on my father's side, the Italian one, he had a lot of stomach issues, a lot of stomach issues. And, we think she had celiac, although that back then they didn't know what it was. So anyway,
Please excuse this brief interruption for a shameless commercial. Remember, you can get your own copy of Iris's book, Never Alone, at irisfsmith.com.
right.
Yeah, I don't know of any family
Anyway.
members that have celiac. I'm told I had a great aunt who had really bad rheumatoid
Hmm.
arthritis, which is what I
Mm-hmm.
was diagnosed with at 11 years old, and then the
Oh,
celiac came later.
wow.
So I don't, there's some speculation that some of my food issues came more from medications that I was on for the rheumatoid
Hmm.
arthritis. But I think, when I think back to childhood, there was certain meals that always made me sick, and it was anything that was really heavily filled with gluten.
Yeah.
So I think I
Wow.
always had some intolerance at least. Yeah.
Yeah, but for
Mm.
me, they say it's hereditary it's called celiac sprue, the real celiac disease. And so what I was saying is because it's
Mm.
hereditary, we could trace it back to my grandmother who had terrible stomach issues. She lost half her stomach in surgery because she was so sickly,
Ugh.
you know. And she died fairly young. She died in
Mm.
her early 60s. And so that
Yikes.
was hard. I remember her having
Yeah.
lots of health issues. Karen, does anybody in your family have anything like that?
Well, it's not funny, but I have I do have that stomach issues. So it's interesting you say it, and we kind of track it and watch. And I know I do better with some foods than others, and than dealing with arthritic issues. We don't really, all of us, everyone on my family has diverticulitis.
Okay.
It's like all of us, all five of us, my mom, my dad, my sister, my brother, my sister, my sister's had surgery. So, I keep an eye out on my diet as best as possible, but
Mhm.
so I'm cracking up. So I know who I am as this person with the funny stomach.
Yeah.
Who are we? I am a person who has to watch what they eat. So I apologize for going off on that, but I think this is fascinating that you found each other at that time. And, because I do know that you felt like you were totally alone in that day, like when you were doing that stuff.
Well,
So
it's like a divine appointment, so that we're not alone, honestly. You know,
there, yeah, yeah.
so one of the things I was going to ask you guys about when you became adults, okay, and you transitioned from like high school into the college years. Did you guys go through either one of you go through like a little identity crisis then? Because I sort of did. I was like, and because I had health issues, it really interfered in me finding myself. And so I always would like to find myself through other people, like my mother, my husband, my son. I always identified myself as the mother, the wife, the daughter, the
Mm,
friend. You know what I mean? And it took me a long time to figure out, well, who am I by myself? And what do I like? Did you guys go through anything like that when you were
yeah.
entering into adulthood? Because I did.
I had trouble with that because so I got married, gosh, before I turned 21, and I had Ashley before I was 22. So yeah, I was still a baby, and at that point, I again, I didn't know who I was, like what I wanted to be, as far as like what did I have, what gifts, what was I going to do. So when I had my oldest one, I know Rachel and I were talking earlier off screen, and my daughter was born with spina bifida, so I realized I was smart. I realized I was capable. I realized that I could be an advocate. And she gave me a sense of purpose. I knew who I was as a person and in my faith, but I just felt it was interesting, this particular piece of it. The crux of that is that we talk about it all the time, not putting so much into a person or thing to see who we are as a person, because I think a lot of my identity was put into my kids.
Yeah.
So, but I just dove in, and I think I learned it was very cool to realize, I would look back and go, oh my gosh, I'm really, I was absorbing all this medical information and just kind of just dove in and did because I didn't know any different. So I didn't have a lot of time to explore like what the heck my mother and father were thinking letting me get married so young. We just don't know, but that's all right. That's a whole nother
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
So
Young
yeah,
too.
man, I feel like Rachel got married.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I was
I was
21.
21.
Didn't do real whole you were? So I did college for a year and then was home for a year. So it's like 18, 19. Maybe I was 20 when I got married. I'm sorry. Yeah, I might have been right before. I couldn't drink at my wedding. Couldn't have a glass of wine.
I was pregnant at your
Yeah,
wedding, Karen.
yeah.
Do you remember me being pregnant at your wedding? Yeah, I
Yes,
was pregnant with
I
my first.
do. Oh, I know. And you stood in that poor receiving line. Oh, the worst. Too funny.
I was
Yeah.
about
Yeah. How
I
about
was
you?
8 months pregnant, Karen.
I think I have a
Oh,
picture of you somewhere with that. I know we're gonna find my pictures, I promise. I do think I have a picture of you
That would be nice.
from that. So that's too
Yeah.
funny. Yeah. How about you, Rachel?
well, my whole life had grown up with one goal, and that was to be a medical missionary. I had taken a tour of a
Oh,
mercy ship in
No
Seattle.
kidding.
Um,
Wow.
and so I didn't have TV in my home, so they showed videos of doing surgeries on kids with like a cleft
oh,
palate, or
wow.
is
Yeah.
that
Oh,
goiters,
wow.
like those giant tumors
Yes.
that people get in Africa. And so that was super impactful. So my whole school career, my goal was I was going to go into
Hmm.
medicine, and I wanted to go to Africa and help all of the children in Africa. I grew up like during the Ethiopian famine and things like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, but then when I was 15, I met this guy, and
Oh, yeah.
things
There it goes.
change.
Yeah.
So then by the time I was 18, I decided I wanted to be with him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got married at 18, and I had four kids by the time I was 24.
Beat me. I had 3 by 27.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Amazing.
and that, it's amazing because it was just those few short years where I had my 4 children
Mhm.
were the only years of my life that I've not been struggling with rheumatoid
Mhm.
arthritis. So it was just the way it
Oh,
was meant to be for me to have all my kids real close
wow.
together. And then, well, for my last pregnancy, I was very unhealthy again with the autoimmune disease. So
Wow.
anyway, I'm so thankful that I had all those kids close together. I wouldn't have one of
That's
my kids and that'd be so
amazing.
sad. So, but during those years when I had three in diapers at one time, I remember having a little bit of an identity crisis because it was like, what am I doing? I was going to be in Africa right now, but
Yeah.
like, how did I get here kind of thing. Even though it
Mhm.
was very intentional, I thought through it. I knew that I was choosing having a family over, a missionary field position because my husband had made it clear he did not want to go to Africa. That was not on his list.
Now
Yeah.
And
that'll put
so
a
I knew
damper
I
on
was
it,
choosing
right?
between those two. Right, yeah. And I chose him and I still don't regret it even, now. And so, but I remember one day like changing another diaper, you know, and just thinking, okay, well maybe someday I'll still go to Africa and adopt all the orphan children and maybe this is just preparing me for that. Like
Mm.
that was kind of how I reconciled it in my mind at that time. And of course, when I look back now, I think how incredibly formative the experience was just to have children and be a
Yeah.
wife in an intact
Mhm.
home as my children
Mm-hmm.
were growing up. I learned so much about myself and the
Mm-hmm.
world that I
Yeah.
had not learned in my childhood because of the broken home,
Yeah.
Yeah.
situation and all of that. So I'm so thankful that I had that was that shift,
Mhm.
I just had never even really considered marriage until I started thinking about marrying my husband because it wasn't something to be desired in my mind.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm super thankful that I met my husband when I did and just the ways that being a wife and a mom has helped me be much more at peace with myself, I think, and even with the
Um,
You
world.
know, Rachel, so you
yeah.
had to transition from being a wife and a mother now to going to law school. What was that like?
Yeah.
Talk about who am I?
It was a
Now I'm
transition.
somebody different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. So I'm always looking ahead, which can be good. Sometimes it's a problem. But, so even as my kids were getting older, I was thinking, okay, I'm going to be this age when my last one is 18. Like, what am I going to do? I have a lot of years left, because I started so young. So I was really just doing a lot of thinking about that, even in that season where my kids were
Mhm.
teenagers and transitioning into adulthood. And I can promise you, I never once thought of going to law school.
I love it.
Like
Yes.
my
Isn't that
whole
great?
life. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
You mean,
never once because I've always been
Rachel, like I never thought of
Mm-hmm.
doing a podcast.
Oh,
right.
me either. Me either.
Right.
And
Wow.
yet, here we
Okay.
are.
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing how different all three of us are? So I'm having an epiphany at the moment that God is so good because I think I did not have an idea of what I was or who I wanted to be. And when I had this child who had many medical needs, mentally whole, I need to tell you, a huge blessing, beautiful, bright, wonderful, but physically limited. But I didn't blink when I had
Mhm.
her. I didn't say, why me? I never said, and I know I don't mean to say that about people, but I'm just saying it just didn't dawn on me. I just kind of dove in and did
Yeah.
because I didn't have plans. I didn't have expectations, and I kind of think that was a gift. And I'm having that moment right now. It will be 17 years since my daughter passed this week, and I'm at the point where I'm very thankful we had her.
Yes.
And oh, sorry. So, but isn't it funny? God makes you the way you are to, and I don't think I ever appreciated that until you girls talked about that.
Yeah.
Hmm, it's interesting.
Well, Karen, I remember when Ashley was born.
So,
I just remember everything, and we got together periodically, and you did so well. You were such an inspiration, such a bright mother for her. You just were the perfect mother for her. You really were, and
Well, I felt pretty special that God gave her to me, so that was kind of a thing. So then I was mad he was an Indian giver, but that's another conversation too. So
I
yeah,
understood.
yeah, but it's yeah. So,
But so well,
but isn't it
Karen,
amazing that
you
you
know,
don't
you've
really?
done so well. And anyway, if anybody has anything else that they want to add, I know Karen, when you start to talk about Ashley, I get a little teary-eyed myself.
I'm
No,
sorry.
no, no,
Yeah,
no,
it's
no.
not to
It's
mean to
not
that. I
that.
just think that
This is
I'm.
me being with
Yeah,
you and just together.
thank you.
And I
Yeah,
just remember,
yeah, but I thank you for letting me talk about her.
oh, anytime, absolutely.
It matters.
Yeah.
Oh, I know. I struggle with it. I have to be honest. I don't want to be Debbie Downer.
No,
It's like I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's
that's
me.
not a Debbie Downer. That's called being your authentic self and real. And there's lots of people who go through these things who
I
benefit
know.
from, our stories. So that is one of your stories. And as I said, you've done so well. And
Yeah,
just, you talk about it when you feel like it, you know, and we'll be here for you.
thanks. So I am a survivor and I'm strong and I'm capable and I didn't know that in my younger years. So I think it's listening to the both of you. You're both very strong and smart women. I mean, I'm in awe of the things you're both doing. So I've had to allow me to love me for me and because I'm not a scholar and I don't want to go to school. So,
But you know something? Here's the thing.
but you both impressed
Here's
me.
the thing, Karen. It says in the Word of God that a friend loveth at all times. And a real
Mm,
friend loves
yep,
us for who we are, the way we are. And I've said this in other
yep,
podcasts, as long as we're not hurting anyone, we need to be who we are. And everybody's so different. That's why I
yep,
wrote the book I wrote, because I recognized the diversity in our culture and how people need to be who they
yeah,
are. And I said in my book, I said, if how can you be anybody else? You are who you are. You can't be any different. And again,
yeah,
as long as you're not hurting anyone, you're fine. And your real friends will love you for
yep,
who you are, the way
yep,
you are. I can't say that enough. And
yep.
so
No, very
yeah,
thankful.
so in closing, I would just say that you're both dear friends to me. Karen's a long time. Rachel feels like it's a long time too. In fact, Rachel has felt like a daughter, and I
I
got robbed of having a daughter because
love
I
that.
had a miscarriage as a girl,
Yeah.
and I had to go through that too. And so when Rachel came along, it was filling a gap that I had never experienced. And God is good. Now I've got,
Nice you know that
yeah,
gift.
and so God is good. He's now given me a granddaughter, and she's just beautiful, and she's 3 years
Yeah.
old, and He has a way of replacing.
And looks like
Yeah,
me.
I know it looks like Karen. She does.
She looks like
She looks
me.
like, wait a minute.
To bring my old pictures. She looks like me as a little one. I had to bring it up. I'm like, hey, that's kind of funny. We are
I
related.
know we are related. We
That's hilarious.
something
I
well, when we were
know.
growing up,
Funny.
Karen, when we were growing up, we used to tell people we were half sisters. And your mother, remember, we said
Yes.
this another
Yeah.
podcast. She was like, "You two
Yeah.
need to stop saying that because that means I was with Iris."
Stop saying it. Yeah. My mom was
I
funny.
mean, people would ask
Yeah.
me.
That's so
They would say
funny.
to me, "Well, how are you and Karen half sisters?" And I had to think about it because we hadn't come up with that part of the plan. And I went,
We just
and I
are.
said, I
Yeah.
said, "Well,
I don't know.
okay, I think that okay, Karen's mother's my mother. What happened to my mother? Okay, my mother wasn't even in the mix anymore." And I
Oh
said, "My
no.
father is
Well, they didn't
her
really know
mother."
each other, but oh
And
well.
this was a small town, and her mother was going to church, and she was,
I know.
living this wholesome life. And all of a
Just
sudden,
stop saying that, Iris.
scandal.
Pretty funny. Nah, we straightened that away. That was all good.
Anyway,
Yeah,
so
funny.
in closing, I just want to
Uh,
thank you both for being here tonight. And I want to thank our viewers for spending time with us. It's always a pleasure. And
yep.
we'll look forward to seeing you next week. And hopefully you'll connect with us again and learn some things and share with us. And,
Yep.
we enjoy having each other. So good night for now.
Good night. Have a
Good
great
Yeah, you
night.
week.
too.
Bye,
Thanks
girls.
again. Bye bye.
Bye.
See ya.
Wow, that was awesome, wasn't it?
I know those stories were really something. Hey, thanks everyone for joining us. We'll see you next time when we share more stories from Iris's book, Never Alone.
Order your copy of Never Alone at irisfsmith.com today.